Alright, everybody, hello. This is my review of The Boys Season 3. I'm going to be doing these reviews on my phone for now, until I get my camera and my setup going, but it's honestly just a lot easier just to pull up my phone and hit record rather than set up the camera and do all the editing, but we'll get there. Look, I'm going to do it the same way I did my review of Thor, Love and Thunder. I've just jotted down some notes, pretty much cut it into 3 sections. So I'll talk about first off The Boys, then I'll talk about The Seven, and then Payback and like the season storyline as a whole. So first off, we got Butcher. Now Butcher this season, like, you know what? Let me recap seasons 1 and 2 for you. My feelings about them. I think it was a really good show for those first 2 seasons. Sometimes it'd get a little too political and in the weeds for me, and I feel like this season has done the best job of sort of amping up the pulpiness of the show and making it just sort of highlighting the more fun elements of it. And it can still get dark, obviously, but they figured out this year how to do the show in a more, for lack of a better word, commercial way. Like it's a lot more fun, even though it's fucked up. So Billy Butcher this season is, as always, just constantly pushing the boundaries of like what's right to get his goal. The first 2 seasons he was very adamant about, Supes need to be stopped because anyone with that kind of power is fucked up. And then this season he crosses that line and, just starts shooting up Compound V over and over. That's what I love about him, because he can just do the worst shit. He's probably like him and Homelander are probably like neck and neck as the most despicable characters in the show. But as he like takes 3 steps towards evil, or like 5 steps towards not evil but like sort of nefarious means, he's always taken that like 1 step towards redemption. So like he's kind of going the right way about it, but you always see those glimpses of hope for Butcher. And that really came to a head at the end of the season, the last 2 episodes, where he sort of really fully realized Huey as sort of his little brother figure, his replacement for Lenny. And that was, really, it's always really touching, because, he can get dark and fucked up, and when he does do that, those light turns, it's that more gratifying. So that's Butcher. Huey this season, I really like the way his story came around, and he sort of ultimately came to terms with his place in The Boys and his place with Starlight and who he is, because he was sort of struggling with being, powerless, and he always felt like he had no power, and he had to be the sort of one being saved all the time. And he found his worth in the last episode, where he, instead of shooting up the Compound V, he decided to assist Starlight and like make her more powerful rather than like going and trying to save her. So that was a really nice, subtle, not so subtle moment. Mother's Milk, the whole Soldier Boy backstory with his family this season was really rough. And there were some scenes where he'd like go face to face with Soldier Boy without the powers, which was kind of dumb, but I dug his whole struggle with the stepdad, I forget his name, who's just a complete moron and prick, as we see in the final scene of the season, because he's there when Homelander fucking that guy. Just him being sort of the one father of the group, I seem to relate a bit more to him this season, because I'm a dad now. Frenchie and Kimiko. Look, Frenchie and Kimiko have never been my favourite part of The Boys. They're always the other characters on the side. I like The Boys when they're all together. And Frenchie and Kimiko especially, I think they work best when they're with everyone. But this being an ensemble, they like to mix and match and like throw the characters into their own storylines and then assemble them at the end. Which is fine, that's what you gotta do. But I dug that they finally like consummated their relationship this season. That was really cool, and they also sort of came to terms with where they belong in The Boys, and if they belong with The Boys. That was kind of their whole story this season. And look, there were a lot of moments where they were in some dire straits. So I'm at least glad they made it out alive. And again, like, I find this season to be the best, so their story I find was a bit better. Kimiko coming to terms with her own powers and like choosing them ultimately after having them taken away from her. And Frenchie, the whole thing with Frenchie and missing Herogasm was a lot of fun. That wasn't really his story, but that was fun. Okay, the 7. I'll start at the bottom and then we'll work our way up to Homelander. Supersonic. I thought he was a character that could have very easily gone down the cliche perfect ex-boyfriend who's come in to ruin, sort of Huey's and Starlight's relationship. But luckily he died before that kind of got to happen. And I'm glad when the show gives us moments like that where you're like, oh, is it really going to go down this cliche route? And then next thing you know, he doesn't have a face anymore. So, and then ultimately, sort of retrospectively, you're like, oh, he was just a good dude. He wasn't trying to fuck Starlight. He probably was, but he was just a good dude in the end. A-Train is finally on a nuanced path of redemption after having his brother sort of paralyzed by Blue Hawk. He's never been my favorite of the 7, and his storyline, all these characters are very despicable. And one of the things I didn't like about the first 2 seasons is that I could never find someone to attach to because everybody was so messed up. And as people were all messed up, but it was just like hard to find the good, and sort of the pulpier and the more comic booky and the more fun this season got, the more I kind of liked everyone despite their flaws. So I'm glad A-Train's finally on the A-Train to redemption. Hopefully we'll see in season 4. The Deep. Look, this is the one character I'm just over. The whole Aquaman, like, they really make him out to be the dorky loser Aquaman character. And I get it. It's been 24 episodes. I don't need to see him fuck another octopus. And that's all I really have to say about the Deep. Maeve. I thought it was very fitting in the end when she tackles Soldier Boy out of the Vought Tower, and sort of she has to take the blast because this whole thing with Soldier Boy was set in motion because of her, and she brought the information to Butcher. So, like, it was fitting to have her sort of close that book as well. But then they did the Stranger Things Max thing of having their cake and eating it too, where she is still alive but powerless, which it's alright. I mean, that's a good enough sacrifice, but I'm sure we're not done with Queen Maeve. But maybe we are, I never read the comics. Next, we'll go Starlight. Look, Starlight is the only, like, morally completely upright character in the show, and which makes her kind of the most boring. In a show full of, like, horrible sort of people and people who are always not sure what the right thing is to do, she always seems to be doing the right thing. So, good on her. She quit the 7, which, that was very empowering for her. She tossed out a costume. She's one of the boys. So I'm glad to see where that goes for season 4. Noir, Black Noir. It sucked to see him get killed at the end of the season. He brought a fun little visual flavor with the animation characters that sort of live in his head. And I feel like we'd just scratched the surface of him, and I was kind of hoping for some sort of twist. I know in the comics, I think Noir is actually a Homelander clone, but they didn't go that route, obviously, for this show, which is fine with me, but I don't know, I just love the aesthetic of the character, and he's always interesting. More interesting than the Deep, that's for sure. Okay, let's talk about Homelander. Somehow, he, at the end of this season, with all the switching alliances in that last sort of showdown with Soldier Boy and Homelander and Maeve and Butcher, and having Ryan there as the sort of the key that sort of everything turns on. he gets his way, and it was kind of messed up that the reason Ryan trusts him now is because he forgives him for killing Becca, and Homelander never gave a shit about Becca to begin with. Like, he raped her. Like, he never cared for her, so he doesn't really have anything to forgive Ryan for. But from Ryan's perspective, he's like, oh, Butcher's mad at me for killing Becca, but Homelander isn't, and he's my dad, so now I'm going to go with him. So that was some good writing on their part. And over the season, Homelander sort of got to see that there are people out there who are willing to accept the worst sides of him and champion him for it, because they want some sort of god to look up to, and they want someone who will come and save them, and they are okay with the Old Testament shit, the fire and vengeance and all that. So when he blasts that guy's head off at the end of the season and everyone starts cheering, it's the worst thing that could have happened, because now he's like, oh, so I do have actual followers. I have like a cult of Homelander almost. And they'll follow me because out of love and fear at the same time. And that little smile on Ryan's face at the end is even more terrifying, because now he's like, oh, okay, this is how people without power are supposed to be treated. Poor kid. His life is not going to be good. Alright, let's move on to sort of the payback element of the show and the whole storyline. So, I didn't love the first few episodes, but they'd like tease payback and sort of, show us little scenes and flashbacks here and there. It wasn't my favourite part of the show. Didn't hate it, but I don't know, I just wanted payback to be a little cooler. The Wonder Twins are a bit lame. Crimson Countess was okay. It was cool to see Laurie Holden back. I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead, and I loved her character Andrea, as annoying as she could be sometimes. But she was wasted pretty quick. So then we have Stan Edgar, who was ousted by Victoria Newman and Homelander, and he sort of disappeared from the show after that, probably to go film Better Call Saul, which, hey, I'm cool with, because I way prefer Gus Fring. Stan Edgar is kind of just Gus Fring in The Boys, and it's far less interesting. And while I will miss Giancarlo Esposito's presence on the show, I do think it actually makes things more interesting now that Homelander's in charge of Vought, and that sort of whole business side of everything is not part of the show anymore, because that was another down in the weeds part of the show that I didn't enjoy. So now that Homelander's kind of got to run everything, he's doing it his way, it makes for a more interesting show, in all honesty. So if he comes back, fine. If not, also fine. Paul Reiser, I forget his character, the Legend, was that his name? Fucking great. More of him, the better. It was so funny to watch him in this juxtaposed against Stranger Things, because it's completely a different character. God, he made me laugh. The whole Kelly to Brock thing. Big L, big B, rest of the letters small. Fuck. Give us more Paul Reiser, please. Let's talk about Herogasm. Look, it was a bit overhyped. They said it was like the most disgusting blah 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 you've ever seen, and yeah, I didn't expect it to be. I've seen worse. If you've seen the degloving scene from Gerald's Game, that's way worse than anything that went on in Herogasm. And it sort of wasn't out of character for the show to be that vulgar and disgusting. So a big superhero orgy was kind of fun to see, pretty much. I'm like, oh cool, super tits, you know. Look, the cum was a bit gross. The mother's milk got splattered in, but you know, it's the shock value sort of wasn't there for me. That episode served better as like a sort of hub of drama that sort of drew all the characters to Herogasm, and then there was that big sort of battle that exploded from it. So I thought it was a better actual dramatic episode than it was a, oh my god, this is the most disgusting blah 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 ever. Look, they did a good job of marketing it, but you're full of shit. And finally, let's talk about Soldier Boy. Now, I'm a Supernatural diehard. I watched every episode. I love Jensen Ackles, and I was so excited to hear that he was going to be part of this season as this Captain America-esque character. And he gave us exactly what I thought he would, that sort of racist, but not trying to be, just sort of man out of time and out of place, Captain America type character who would wake up 40 years later and be like, not with it, the way the world is, and all the wokeness and all that. It's a lot to catch up on, and someone from 40 years ago probably wouldn't adjust to that very well. But the acting I thought was superb. I thought he had some of the funniest lines of the season. The part where him and Huey are on their own in the 7th episode, and they get attacked by the priest and the nun, and Huey's like, "They're not evil. You just have PTSD," and then they get turned on by them, and and Soldier Boy has to kill them, and he goes, "Hey, I don't have shell shock. Fuck you." one of my favorite lines of the season. I'm glad that he didn't, blow up at the end of the end of the season, and they've got him on ice again. So he's coming back. If you're not killing him, he's definitely gonna come back. Sorry. Okay, I did my best to fly through those and try and keep this short. Like I said, it's my favourite season of The Boys so far. It actually got this show from a show that I liked, but sort of, again, couldn't really connect with a lot of the characters because of how sort of political and down in the weeds it would get at times, and also everyone's sort of moral quandaries would be, I don't know, just something I wasn't interested in. And this season turned up the pulp and refined the story to its, most interesting parts. It gave us more of the characters we love and less of the characters that we don't. So just great job to The Boys season 3. I cannot wait for season 4. They're starting filming next month. Big ups to Anthony Starr and Carl Urban for being local Australian New Zealand boys. I think they're both Kiwis, but we'll claim them. But thank you for watching. Like, share, and fucking praise Homelander.